Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Whiskey Cavalier. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I do love that the team is on an undercover mission, and literally everyone but Susan gets to go. She's like, no. I'm good. You can tell it is devastating. And obviously you have Frankie and Will pretend to be a married couple and everything. I love it. She's like, okay, first of all, no nicknames, no honey or boo. He's like, boo, come on, honey. And then she's like, no public displays of affection. She's like, come on. Like, he's like, come on, but we're going to hold hands and stuff like that. I just love it. Him being kind of who he is, obviously mixed with her. Obviously, she doesn't like the whole wedding thing, even him picking the wrong car and stuff like that. But he's like, oh, my character prefers this type of car and stuff like that. I even love it later on when she's talking to the dude. It's like, oh, yeah, like, what was it? We're talking to Michelle and being like, oh, yeah, he went to something. I forgot what it was exactly that she was referencing and was kind of saying that he's kind of a dork. And he's like, no, Dan is not a dork. Dan is cool. And I love it. Also, like, the whole fight, too. That it's like when it's all said and done, Michelle was like, I actually like you better with a goatee, because he thought it made his face look slimming. So that was kind of interesting. I was wondering what was going to be the thing where it's like Michelle recognized him. I was like, what was that going to be about? I was like, oh, like, is there going to be, like, I at first was thinking like, oh, it would be a Gigi situation. Like, for whatever reason, I thought like, oh, that'd be why she remembered him or something. It's like, no, it turns out not to be the case. I'm curious, like, is that outright ever going to pop up in the show again? Will she ever pop up in the show again? I think so, because that's just going to add a complicated element to everything, but still. It's kind of interesting, because even with the whole Gigi situation, Will hasn't given up on the whole true love situation, because for him, it's like, oh, he realizes because things didn't work out with him and Gigi, that just proves that she wasn't his soulmate and everything, so. But I love it later on. It's like, Frankie, you got to go talk to Iona, the bride, and she was basically being like, oh man, my bridesmaid Michelle just bailed. She sent an email kind of explaining everything, and Frankie being like, wow, that's crazy. Susan's like, it's not really that crazy, you killed her, remember? And just the cadence with which that was said, I love it. I also love Jay and Standish having issues again. This time it's because Jay doesn't like the fact is that Standish is such a mess. He's got stuff all over the place. He's like, this is our new facility and stuff like that. You got food everywhere. He's like, no, it's good. He asks the guy, like, hey, you want a piece of this? He's like, come on, dude. The mayo isn't even warm yet. And the dude's like, I'm good. And it's just like, see, he's fine with everything. And even the fact is that Jay was implanting little, trackers in the cookies. And he was like, you've been eating, like, you ate like 6 of them. And he's like, he pauses and just looks at him. Your robots are delicious. He's like, thank you. So I love that. It's so good. And even the fact is, like, they're having fun at the place, and then Will's like, it's not. He's like, oh, it looks so fun. And Will's like, no, it's not. And Susan's like, I can literally see you smiling. Will looks at the camera, and he kind of looks down and gets rid of his smile immediately. I love it. And it was actually kind of really sweet, like the time, they spent together, like, obviously, like, she kissed him. Obviously, it was just to get Michelle to kind of walk away, but it's kind of like a whoa, because even Jay and Standish were like, oh, whoa, that's crazy. And then to have the whole situation of them sitting on the blanket talking and stuff like that, it is kind of messed up, because later on when it happened, when it's like, oh, Frankie kisses that dude, it's like, I guess it was for intel or whatever. I thought that was a situation of like, oh no, Will completely misread the situation. It's like, no, Frankie was doing that for her, because I think it's because of the situation of her and Will had a real moment there, and I think it made her scared. So she kind of had to sabotage it, because it's like, no, I don't, like, for her, she's not really good at the whole opening up thing. And obviously for her, like, her and Will, it's like, oh, they talked about the fact is, like, she came to Paris when she was 18. She was all over the place. I forgot what it was she said, that she was going to marry someone like this. Like, she had her own thought about how her life was going to be. She didn't expect things to be where they are, be who she is, and be where she is right now. And Will's like, I'm kind of glad that you did, because it led to us being here and everything, And it's like, oh, they having this sweet, touching moment and everything. And then it gets complicated because of that. And Will gets pissed, because it's like, the fact of the matter is, you made a vow and everything. And she's like, the fact of the matter is, every marriage, there's cheating. So I'm actually helping our cover. He's like, you took a vow. She's like, you're pissed at me for breaking the fake vows for our fake marriage. And it was just so interesting. And everyone's overhearing this conversation too. because obviously, like, Susan being able to analyze people is like, oh yeah, Will, obviously you're upset, you're a little jealous, and that's okay. And obviously he snapped at her because it's like, well, because that's what Susan does. She analyzes, she profiles people, which does make it complicated to be around her, even to have like a normal friendship situation with her. Because obviously Will doesn't want to admit, because for him it's like, because at first it's like, the fact is, it's like, hey, Frankie, I know you want to admit it. We had a moment of connecting. You have a heart and you are caring and connecting. She's like, you shut up and you take that back. Because she doesn't want to admit it, because she spends so much of her life being this cold-hearted person, kind of opening herself up. I think it has to do with her past. Like, there had to have been a moment where she opened her heart up to someone and it broke her, and she doesn't want to even take that chance again. I think that's what led to her lining up in this line of work. Maybe it has something to do with her dad. Like, her dad was something she brought up once and then just immediately shut down afterwards, but maybe that was just a situation of like, I don't want to get too personal with you. But she opened up a little bit more this episode, but she immediately sabotaged it afterwards. But it wasn't like an immediate thing. She opened up more and more with Will. I think it's because she wasn't talking about her dad this time. So it might play into that, might not. Once again, like, a lot of, we don't know. We've only tackled a little bit into Frankie's life, but yeah, it was kind of interesting, like, kind of getting back to the whole Susan situation. We kind of dive into her situation a little bit, because she's always been very good at reading people and profiling them, to the point, like, I love that whole conversation. She's like, Ray, do you come from a big family? He's like, actually, she's like, actually, shut up, I don't care. She brings up the fact that she has 5 sisters, and they never really want to hang out with her because she does that whole thing of analyzing people, and it just makes it kind of like, okay, I don't want to hang around her. She's weird. She does that whole thing. So she kind of got left behind a lot. And obviously this whole situation being left behind in a mission, it made her kind of feel that way again, which Ray was like, oh, boo-hoo you. The fact of the matter is you got left behind. The fact of the matter is I messed up one time and I got left behind. I'm in a doghouse with, the team, but more specifically Will. And she's like, you literally hooked up with your best friend's fiance. He's like, yes, one mistake. That happened over and over again for 7 months. But my point is, he's like, I'd give anything to be in your position, because no matter what, you're in a good position because the team needs you. They don't need me. He's like, I'm sticking with this whole situation because I'm hoping on some level that Will end up forgiving me for everything. And it's like, oh, that's so sad yet sweet, because it's like, hey, you want your best friend back. That's like, you made a mistake and you want to make up for it. Obviously, Will's not going to be all that. It's going to be hard to move past that, because even though he's like, oh, she wasn't my soulmate, you still cheated on. You still went behind my back and was sleeping multiple times for months, lying to my face as you were with my fiance. So there's that complicated nature. I love that when it came down to it, Paul couldn't, go through with the mission and stuff like that, because he cares about the bride. It's like, I love her, and I love Will being like, his true love. He's like, yeah, the mission kind of got messed up, but at the very least, he kind of got, it's like, yeah, but I was proven right in the end, so it kind of, that's a personal victory for me. And then Frankie's in the car being like, oh, because he couldn't do his job, blah, 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 blah. For her, it's like, why can't anyone do their job? Because everyone's getting so caught up in their feelings and everything, and then she's bad-mouthing Paul and stuff like that, and then he sits up and he's like, is she always like this? And Will's like, no. Actually, she's usually meaner. Also love, it kind of has a happy ending in the end. Why did Frankie shoot the dude in the leg? I guess that was to make sure he doesn't possibly get away. He didn't have the gun anymore. And she's like, does that make you happy? Which even Will's like, honestly, I can say that I am, wedding out, and which you wouldn't expect from him. Even he's surprised by the whole situation. But luckily, Paul and the bride, Enid, end up, getting together, because it's like, I fell in, like, it was a mission at first, but I fell in love with you, and here we are. I thought that was pretty sweet. And then there's a whole situation with Standish and Jay. Jay admits, like, yes, I can come off a little anal, just because, like, the fact is that he ended up putting trackers in everyone at the wedding, and it's like, that's a little crazy. But for him, it's like, in his line of work, if he doesn't get all the details right, if he isn't as meticulous as he needs to be, whether it be about making sure all the guns are up to, taken care of, every little minute detail of a plan isn't, perfect, then the people end up dying. They have died in the past, so that's why he is the way he is, which makes him very hard to work with. But I love Standish being like, apology accepted. And Jay being like, it's not an apology. And Susan's like, yes, it was. And it's super cute. And I'm like, I love it. It's just, the team all around was pretty nice. I love that when the mission was finished, it's like, hey, Ray, you, as long as you sit down and shut up and don't say anything, you can stay. Because Susan was like, you helped me out this episode, so obviously you get to stay. He's like, yay. I didn't even talk about it, but I also love the whole thing at the beginning where Will and Frankie are doing that spy thing of just like getting past the lasers and stuff like that, which was pretty dope. I even love it because it kind of ties into the episode where the bad guy is like, we were soulmates because the lady gave up the password. She was kind of like shrugging, and it's just kind of like he's like, and Will being kind of a little sympathetic, being like, yeah, I know what you're going through, buddy. What I also liked is Standish when he was trying to get that guy to bring the drink to Andre. He was just like, yeah, I need you to do that. I actually need to teach you to do that. That's what my boss said. And he starts singing in a song, and I love it. It's so good. But the episode kind of ends on kind of like a type of sad note in a certain regard, just because it's like you see Will kind of by himself, and then Franklin comes over. It's kind of like she's extending an olive branch. She's like, I just want to see if there was something, need it if you need it. And he's like, thanks for the beer, and walks away. And you see Frankie kind of like, wait, what? Because I think it's just because Will is usually just kind of an open book, and there was something there, but I guess for her it's like here I'm kind of taking steps to open up my heart to you, but like open up a little bit. But now I think, because whether he wants to admit it or not, I think he is willing to admit it, but it still isn't there. Like, he was lashing out saying like it's this and that because it was part of the characters and stuff. It's like, no, Frankie kissing that dude bothered him, on not just on the case of Dan, it bothered him as Will because there's something there, they both felt it, like Will's just not willing to admit it because I think it's for him. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he probably feels like he puts himself out there too much, and he's just going to get himself hurt, especially with Frankie, who kind of closes herself off. So it's like, maybe for him it's like, maybe I shouldn't even try for this situation. Maybe I shouldn't even wait. Like, for him it's like, I've tried and like I can't, keep going down that route. And for him it's just kind of like, yeah, it's too late. It's just kind of like, it's proof that we're just too opposite to be together. But to be fair, they always say opposites attract. But I think you can tell it kind of almost hit and hurt Frankie, because she almost thought like, wait, what? Because he wasn't acting like himself in that moment. Like I said, she was extending an olive branch and being like, oh, I want to be here to kind of support you, but he kind of brushed her off in an extent, so it was kind of an interesting situation. Like, you see her kind of almost, this is kind of what you probably wanted him to be like, but now that the tables have kind of turned in that situation, I don't know, it was kind of interesting. So what's also interesting too, like that whole disagreement that Will and Susan had. Like, obviously they kind of had their little things, but this is the first time like they were kind of upset at each other to the point they had to apologize and everything, which luckily everything kind of like, got settled and apologized and they made up and everything. But it was just kind of like the first time you see them, because like Susan's always backed up Will and he's always had Susan in his corner. This is a moment where it's just kind of like, oh, they're kind of mad at each other. It was just kind of interesting. Like, obviously because Will was just dealing with his feelings at the time and stuff like that. But I think what Susan said to be heart to heart, being like, you need to control your emotions. And maybe that's what Will is doing, because maybe he thinks if he can control his emotions and not be so caught up in everything, that maybe it would maybe he's trying to handle the whole situation with Frankie in a different way, that maybe he feels like this is the right way to kind of chip away at those walls that she put up around herself. I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how they handle this going forward. Obviously, there's also that reference that Jay made in this episode of being like, hey, that there are people that have died before, so that's probably going to be something we might potentially see in the future. And also, I'm curious to also see things continue forward to the point, like, I hope that, Ray and, Will kind of get back to a good place, because I'm sure that's always going to be something kind of weighing on his heart, like, because once again, that is his best friend and everything, or rather was, and, Ray does seem like he is, looking for redemption. Once again, I am curious to see. I feel like she has to in some shape or form. Maybe it's going to be like she pops up and she's with someone else now, and now it hits Ray and, Will, and maybe Ray will have the chance to kind of make up for what happened in the past, or maybe Gigi wants to pick things up and that turns into a whole complicated thing. We'll just have to wait and see. But I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Wait, really quickly. before I do the outro, I forgot there was that little thing at the beginning too. It's like, oh yeah, there was a little blood on the Rembrandt, but don't worry, we had the forgery department getting on that. It's like, wait, there's a forgery department here? We're mentioning that little detail makes me think, oh, maybe that'll be something we'll see in the future. It's like, yeah, the Mona Lisa, not really the Mona Lisa, it's just made by some dude named Kevin. Such a little small thing. It just probably just like a little, joke with the whole, like, oh, this is the bigger scope of this group, this team and everything, and everybody we work with. Like, maybe that's something we'll also see in the future too. It's other like teams in a similar situation of them having to go head to head with other teams. I'd really like that. I think that'd be potentially something we could see. If you're familiar with the show Leverage, they kind of had a similar situation where they had to go up against another thief team at one point in time. And in fact, it ended up being Sophie's old team, which I don't know if I brought that up before. Like, this show kind of has like a very Leverage feel to it, interesting enough, with just the nature of what it is, everything that goes on in it. I don't know. I think maybe that's another reason why I like it, because it kind of feels like Leverage. But nevertheless, that's going off on a tangent. Finally getting to the outro. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good